guys, and welcome back. It is the end of February, so we're going to be doing my February wrap-up. Last month we had a huge video, but this month I only read 4 things, so I figured I can probably fit them all into one video. Some of them I don't really have much to talk about anyway. So I wasn't blown away by any books this month, so most of this is kind of in a general 3 to 4 star reads for me, except for the first one, which we will talk about right now. I don't like that I feel like I have to explain myself, but I feel like I have to explain myself. I read 50 Shades of Grey this month. This is the first time I'd read it. I had sworn it off since it became so popular. I was just not really interested in reading it. It's not really my jam. I do really like romance novels, but like erotica is kind of a different thing for me. The reason that I read it was because the trailers for the second movie made it look like a thriller. And I was like, well, hang on a minute. This could get more interesting than I was giving it credit for. So I decided I would read the first one and maybe read the second one and see if they actually were thrillers. They're not. I mean, if you don't know the plotline of 50 Shades of Grey, it's basically girl is super clumsy and virginal and stumbles into arms of billionaire. I'm not gonna talk really too much about it because there have been a lot of people who've made very good videos about why they disagree with it or why it's not a healthy book, so I'm not gonna spend a lot of time talking about that. I think it is very obvious from the outset that this is not a healthy relationship, and also like the whole BDSM thing, misrepresentation of that community. I think that, you know, that's all been talked about in length by other and better people. So what did I think of it? It was way more boring than I was anticipating. I didn't think that I was going to find it boring, but I did. I have nothing against reading sex scenes. What I do have against is the same sex scene every 5 pages. Like, if they were different, that would be fine. I would probably not be as bored, but it's literally like the exact same scene over and over and over, and it's like so unrealistic for anybody that's ever had sex. So I don't really understand the draw of it. Second of all, I was expecting it to be way more kinky than it was. It was just very bland. Am I glad I read it? Not really. I mean, I didn't think I was missing anything when I decided that I wasn't going to read it. I don't feel like I have gained anything by reading it. So I did try to start reading the second book because I thought, you know, obviously with the whole, oh, it's a thriller thing. So I read about 15% of the second book. Everything that you see in the trailer happens within the first like 10 seconds of the second book. So I'm assuming that the rest of the book is probably just more boring sex scenes. I stopped reading it. It's not a thriller. I didn't really find it very compelling. I didn't like either of them. So the next 2 are some sci-fi books that I read. One is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. Now this is about an area called Area X that has been changed. There's been some sort of catastrophic event and this area is becoming different. There's different types of animals and insects and plants, and everything is just kind of weird in this area. So there are teams that are being sent in to study this area. You don't get a lot of information in this book, and the teams are very rarely come back. We enter in as this 12th team. An all-female team is going into Area X. They have chosen an all-female team as being one of the factors that they're trying to manipulate to see if they're okay when they come back. So we follow 4 women, a biologist, a psychologist, an anthropologist, and a surveyor. And we go from the perspective of the biologist. That's kind of all I want to talk about plot-wise, because I think this is a much better book to go into it not knowing much. I really enjoyed the biologist's character. She is very much obsessed with what she does. She's very much, I don't need people, I like what I'm doing. I thought the development of the story, they gave you just enough information to make it feel like you were in this scenario. The amount of information that the author feeds you about like the backstory and the area in general is enough for you to feel like you're being kept in the loop a little bit, but there's still something you're not understanding. So one of my main problems with Nod was the fact that there is no explanation given. Annihilation is different in the fact that I think it is a much more successful novel in the fact that it feeds you enough information so you actually think you're learning something about this area, whether or not you are. This is a trilogy, and there are 2 more books that are actually already out in the United States. I'm gonna pick them up. It's a teeny tiny little book. It's like 150 pages, 180 pages. Feels like a much longer book than it is because there's so much going on and there's so much information. I think a lot of books can fall into the trap of trying to make their book longer. This book feels longer because it has been very edited to what is needed and how you need to read it to tell the story, and I think that was very successfully done. Good book. Good little sci-fi book. Good especially if you're not into sci-fi. You recognize everything that's going on. You recognize humans and you recognize like the things that are happening. It's all very familiar feeling. Alright, so next up, I managed to finish God's War by Cameron Hurley. I talked about this in my last video, where I did kind of like a Friday reads. This book, on the flip side of Annihilation, is harder science fiction. I don't want to say harder because I know that people who read science fiction don't like it when you try and tell other people that their genre, their like favorite genre, is hard to read. But this one it's more complicated and takes a little bit more time to figure out what's going on. So God's War follows countries that are at war with each other and have been at war with each other for like 1,000 years. We follow the main character whose name is Nix Nissa, or Nix, and she is a beldame, which is a bounty hunter slash assassin for the government. So basically, these 2 countries are at war. They've been at war for a really long time. Nix and her fellow beldames basically catch people who have been dodging the draft, and they don't send them to the draft, they kill them. So if you dodge the draft, you are in a good chance that you are going to be murdered by one of these government assassins. So one of the big things that makes this book a little bit more tricky to understand is the technology is organic based. The vehicles that they drive, I always pictured them kind of like cars, so I think they're kind of car-like, are organic. They run on bug tech. So there's this whole section of the book that is focused on you understanding that their tech is based on bugs. And there are certain people who can manipulate bugs and can, you know, heal people based on these bugs. It's very interesting, it's very complex. These people are magicians. We also have another main character who is a magician. His name is Reese, and he is from the other country. So Nix is from a country called Machine, and Reese is from a country called Shenja, and those are the 2 countries that are at war. He doesn't want to be in the war, so he runs away to Machine. Nix gets together a group of, like a crew. That is basically the plot. This was a very complex story. There's a lot of people. All of these people have very nuanced motives. Everybody is super, super believable. They're flawed, but you still kind of like them because most of the people in this book are very likable. My favorite was obviously Nix. I thought Nix was a very good character, and she was probably the one I liked the most. She has her flaws, but I kind of didn't care because she was so cool. The world that Cameron Hurley builds is also very believable. It's a very familiar feeling world. You don't really understand at all. You don't understand the magic system like at all. It's not like Brandon Sanderson's magic system where he's gonna explain it to you. You just kind of pick it up as you go along. I greatly preferred the world building and kind of the more political and exposition-y bits in this book. There came a part where they talk a lot about boxing. That part really lost me because I was so much more interested in the rest of the world than this boxing fight. But that was kind of my only thing that kept me from fully enjoying this. And finally, I waited on a hold list for about 4 months for this ebook. You know when you put a hold on an ebook and then you kind of forget that you had a hold on said ebook, and then all of a sudden you get the ebook and you're like, oh, I totally forgot I wanted to read that. And so I read the first nonfiction book of the year, Brain on Fire by Susan Cahalan. And this book has been kind of making the rounds in bookstores and on BookTube and stuff. It is about this woman's basically descent into madness for a month. It is terrifying. It is so scary just because nobody knows what's wrong with her, and she is so obviously, something is so obviously wrong that you're like, how can you guys not understand that something is wrong with her? This is ridiculous. And it is so scary to read. It just really kind of weirded me out because you don't think that that sort of thing can happen, and then you realize that there's so much we don't know. There's so much we don't understand about disease and about psychiatric breaks. I'll recommend this book if you are at all interested in the brain. I think she does a very good job at explaining very complex brain problems and making it very relatable, and you can understand everything that she's talking about. She explains everything very well. So that is actually going to wrap it up for us today. How was your reading in February? What did you guys read? Are you reading a lot? I hope I read more in March than I read this month. Alright guys, I'll talk to you all very soon. Bye! I've got a little notebook that has got all of my books and the authors and my reading goal and everything. I might be doing a video about this. It's kind of like my book journal. So if you guys would like a book journal video, be sure to like the video so I know that maybe somebody would watch it. I might make it anyway.